Sal Paolantonio is with us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. This season, the pregame starts at Dunkin'. DD Perks members score a $1 medium hot or iced coffee on Eagles game day. So head to Dunkin' for your kick before kickoff. Excludes cold brew. Limit one per guest per visit. Participation may vary. It's a limited time offer, so get it this game day for Eagles and Falcons. You're going to need it to stay awake late at night for the Sunday Nighter. Sal Pal Fridays are back here on the Sports Bash, and he is Sal Paolantonio. I am Mike Gill. What is happening, Sal? How are you?
Mike, it's so good to be back on your program, a little Sal Pal Friday, if I can talk about myself in the third person, on the Mike Gill Show. It's funny, I'm going to Atlanta tomorrow, and I've already begun looking for Dunkin's down in downtown Atlanta, and I haven't been able to find one yet. But I know somebody back there at your studio will come up with one.
I know this, Sal. We were there for the Super Bowl last year. They got one in that CNN center over there.
Yeah, that's right. I think you guys had somebody spot me in line there and maybe took a shot of me and put it on Instagram. The one thing that I always do, if people don't know, and I'll remind them, is on game day, on my way down to the link, I stop at a 24-hour Dunkin' on Route 130 in Cinnaminson and get 3 dozen donuts to bring to the security guards there at the parking lot to make sure they're all set.
They're ready to go. Well, guess what? It's a long season. It'll be a nice season with the Dunkin'. And, hey, this one's on the road. It's Sunday night. Put the Eagles out on the road. But, Sal, we got to look real quick back to last week. The Eagles finished 30th against the pass last year. No signs of improvement in week one. Is this going to be a weekly conversation we have about this secondary?
I think it is going to be a weekly conversation. They made Case Keenum look like Joe Montana last week. You can't go down 17-0 to a backup journeyman quarterback with a tight end who's 79 years old and no Pro Bowl wide receivers. And here comes Matt Ryan. He's got Calvin Ridley. He's coming off a good rookie season. Julio down by the schoolyard. Mohamed Sanu's a beast. Tight end Austin Hooper's no slouch. And both of their backs, Freeman and Smith, can catch the football. So This will be an interesting week. I did go back and look at it, Michael, and the interesting thing was, and you got to give Jim Schwartz some credit because in the second half they were a lot better than the first half. He recognized what he was doing wrong. In the first half, let me pull my numbers up from ESPN Stats Information, which I transcribed this morning for your show. Last week, in the first half, here we go, the Eagles blitzed 21.7% of Case Keenum's dropbacks. Let's call it 22% of his dropbacks. In the first half, the Eagles brought extra pressure, and they got burned. So in the second half, Schwartz dropped it down to 9%. He cut the blitz in half, played more coverage-based defense. Good adjustment by Jim Schwartz. Great adjustment by Jim Schwartz. And he basically did the same thing to Case Keenum in the NFC Championship game when Keenum was wearing the purple and gold of the Minnesota Vikings. And, of course, he started out good, had that first drive, and the Eagles picked sixth them, and that was the end of that. But, good adjustment by Schwartzy, and, hopefully he won't have to learn on the fly against Matty Ice.
Well, Sal, I watched a little bit, and we talked with Matt Tabik from Atlanta earlier. They got ran all over. Does Doug Peterson watch that and say, I might run the ball a bunch on Sunday night, or is that just not in his DNA?
Well, here's the thing, Mike. You have to watch the NFL matchup show. We'll be on ESPN 2 tomorrow morning and ESPN on Sunday morning. By the way, thank you to football fans everywhere. Our ratings on the matchup show week one were astronomical. So I know that you're a big supporter of the show on Twitter. And, we're getting a great audience. Our core audience is so loyal. But Greg Cosell and Matt Bowen do a tremendous job of breaking down the Vikings running game with Dalvin Cook versus the Falcons last week. Here's the difference, and we talk about this on the show. The Eagles don't have a power running game. Their running game is more athletic, more outside the tackles. What happened to the Falcons is they got steamrolled. You watch it what the Vikings did. They sent a lot of pulling guards, pulling tight ends, pulling tackles, second back through, and they just laid the wood to the Falcons. And the Eagles are not designed that way. So I don't expect the Eagles to be able to run that much on the Falcons because it's a different kind of running game.
Sal, do you think maybe everything you said is absolutely accurate on what the Eagles do? Do you think maybe you see more Jordan Howard instead of Darren Sproles within their offense, though, to get maybe a little bit more of a power back against that defense?
Yeah, I could see that, Jeff. I could see that. I just think right now Doug Peterson's in love with Darren Sproles. They're just designing plays and calling his number. He's healthy, and they want to make use of him as much as they possibly can early in the game and early in the season because they don't know what they're going to get out of him. I'm just conjecturing later in the game or later in the season. I think it's sort of a 1-2 punch. It's a little lightning and then some thunder.
You think, they scored 12 last week. Their offensive line has got to be a little bit of an issue. So you talked about the blitz or lack thereof. Schwartz has got to feel pretty good that he doesn't need to blitz this week, going back to that conversation after watching them last week, right?
Well, he didn't need to blitz last week either because they were without their starting left tackle, who's a holdout, the Washington Redskins, and their left guard. That was basically put together with spitballs on the left side. So the fact that the Falcons have lost their first-round draft pick, Chris Lindstrom, to a broken foot, I think is significant. But also, it's a wash because the Eagles lost Malik Jackson. I don't think that Schwartz – listen, he learned his lesson, and he wasn't much of a blitzer last year. The Eagles only blitzed 14% of the time. So it was very, very uncommon for him to come out firing with the blitz against the Redskins like he did in the first half, and he got burned.
Sal, I know Doug talked all summer, or many times during the summer, about last year's slow-starting offense, and that kind of being his primary objective for this season to get his offense going faster and earlier than it did last year. And then, of course, they're down 17-0 in the second quarter there, so there was not much of a change. Do you think that's something that's still kind of he's got a back to the drawing board approach, or do you expect him to just stay the course again, do the same things, and see if it works a little bit better here in week 2?
Yeah, I think it'll be the latter. I think he's going to try to stay the course based off what he saw in the second half. Right? I mean, they played really well in the second half. So you just throw out the first half and you say, okay, we didn't play much of our starters. Carson Wentz never took the field. It was the first time in 273 days that Carson Wentz played a football game in a football uniform. So no tackle football from that game in Dallas, December 8th last year, until Sunday, 273 days. You have to anticipate there's going to be some rush. There's going to be some rust, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. And we saw a lot of it in the first half. They were able to kick it off, but this team's better than that Washington team, right?
Yes.
The Falcons better, much better than I don't want to say much better. I mean, the offense.
No, I think people expect the Falcons to be a postseason contender.
Right.
I don't think people expect the Redskins to be in the postseason conversation.
Yeah, that's But by the way, the Falcons' offensive weapons way better than the Washington weapons. So that 17-0.
Yes.
Yeah, that 17-0 could be a lot worse if McLaurin got behind him a couple times, and Keenan just missed him a couple times. So Ryan's going to hit you there.
I'm just going to go out on a limb and say this, even though I know I'm going to be proven wrong. I think the Eagles should take the ball if they win the toss.
A lot of people hate when he defers like that. I get those texts all the time. Why does he always do that? As if I've ever asked him. Maybe you could text him tomorrow. Sunday night.
Well, I don't think he's going to let those texts are pretty benign. I don't think I'm going to get that kind of stuff out of him. But I think he plays the percentages, and it's working for him. But I think you have to do it in a matchup kind of situation. You're away. Your record in domes is not that good. They're 7-15 in domes and retractable style roof stadiums since 2011. notwithstanding their win against the Patriots in U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. So you haven't beaten the Falcons in the last 3 games at their stadium. You've beaten them at the Link.
Yeah.
None of the games in the last 3 wins have been in the Dome in Georgia. So, you're away. It's the home opener for the Falcons. You've had problems in your pass defense. If you win the toss, take the ball.
All right, couple quick keys from Sal before.
But I'm not coaching the team, Michael. So what do you know?
A couple quick keys from Sal for Sunday night Eagle victory. What do we need to see?
Well, I think going back to what we're talking about, I think it's keep everything in front of you. Not for nothing, they gave up 610 passing yards to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, still won. So. Yeah, try that saying that 3 times fast and I don't think it'll ever be true again. So they got to keep, number one is keep everything in front of you. Don't give up the big pass plays. That's the number one thing. In the 3 wins over the Falcons, they've only given up 6 pass plays of 25 yards or more, which is very, very good. And that's 3 times 4. That's 12 quarters of football, 6 pass plays of 25 yards or more to Matty Ice in that group. And they've kept Julio Jones out of the end zone. So that's number one to me. Don't give up the big pass plays. And number 2 is stay aggressive, as aggressive as you were last week. Another thing that Greg Cosell and Matt Bowen have done a great job with is really breaking down Carson Wentz. And in the last segment of our show this weekend, Greg Cosell does a really superior job explaining how Carson Wentz is so good after the snap. Everybody talks about pre-snap reading the defense, and there are so many quarterbacks who are good pre-snap, not so many after the snap. Carson Wentz happens to be one of the best, considering so much football that he has missed due to injury.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that piece on him because I thought he played really well. I'd like to get a little deeper look from Greg Cosell. That's the matchup show. He's Sal Paolantonio at Sal Pal ESPN on Instagram for his instant reaction at the stadium Sunday night. And he is fueled by Dunkin'. Eagles pregame starts at Dunkin'. DD Perk members score a $1 medium or iced coffee on Eagle game days. Head to Dunkin' for your kick before the kickoff. Eagle fans run on Dunkin'. Sal Pal Fridays are back, and that one is in the books. Sal, enjoy the game, and we will talk to you for Sal Pal Friday next week.
Okay, thanks for having me on, guys.
And Sal Paolantonio, like August, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline.